They called my food app too niche. Now they're watching me destroy their market share. My hands were shaking as I sat in the ridiculously expensive ergonomic chair across from three people who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. The San Francisco skyline stretched out behind them through floor-to-ceiling windows, the perfect backdrop for my professional execution. "Zoe, you've done great work with the FoodFindr algorithm," said Chase Woodley, adjusting his Warby Parker glasses and clearing his throat. "But we've decided to go in a different direction with the platform." Translation: "You're fired." Megan from HR slid a document across the sleek conference table while avoiding eye contact. Next to her, Keith Denton, our newly appointed CPO, that's Chief Product Officer for those who don't speak fluent Silicon Valley, studied his Apple Watch with intense focus. "The severance is generous," Megan offered, her voice professionally sympathetic. 4 months' salary plus extended benefits. I stared at the document without picking it up. "Can I ask why?" Chase and Keith exchanged glances. Through 6 years as FoodFindr's lead developer and algorithm architect, I deserved at least that much. "Your farm-to-table sustainability metrics are impressive," Chase began, using his practiced CEO voice. "But our investors feel they're too niche. The board wants to focus on mainstream user acquisition and conventional restaurant partnerships." Keith finally looked up from his watch. "We're pivoting to a more scalable model. Flash deals, chain partnerships, influencer marketing. Your algorithm is just too complex for what we need now." My algorithm? The one I'd built from scratch. The one that could identify environmentally sustainable restaurants, track food sourcing, and match users with establishments based on their environmental values, not just their taste preferences. The one that made FoodFindr different from every other food app on the market. What they weren't saying: I was 37, female, and stubbornly committed to the original mission of FoodFindr, connecting environmentally conscious consumers with genuinely sustainable food choices. Meanwhile, the company had been slowly infiltrated by Stanford MBA types who thought sustainability was just a marketing buzzword to attract investment before pivoting to whatever would deliver the fastest returns. I should have seen this coming when Chase brought in Keith 6 months ago, bypassing me for the CPO position I'd been promised. "We need someone with broader market vision," Chase had explained, as if my environmental science PhD and 6 years building the company from nothing didn't qualify as vision. "I understand," I said finally, my voice steadier than I expected. "When's my last day?" "We thought it would be best if today was your last day," Megan said gently. "We've already communicated the change to your team." My team? The 5 developers I'd personally recruited and trained. They already knew I was being fired before I walked into this room. "Of course," I replied, standing up and smoothing my blazer. "I'll clean out my desk." "That won't be necessary," Keith said, looking uncomfortable for the first time. "Your personal items have been packed. Security will escort you to collect them." I'd built half this company, and now I needed an escort. Classy. Chase stood up, extending his hand. "We really do wish you the best, Zoe. Your contribution to FoodFindr has been valuable." I shook it briefly, then turned to leave. "Oh, one more thing," Keith added. "We'll need you to sign the updated non-compete and confidentiality agreements." I paused at the door. "Updated how?" "Standard stuff," he said dismissively. 18-month non-compete in the food tech space, standard confidentiality provisions. Right. They were firing me and trying to prevent me from working in my field for a year and a half. I picked up the document and smiled. "I'll have my lawyer review it and get back to you." I never signed it. As security walked me to the elevator, badge already deactivated, my phone buzzed with a text from Maya, my lead front-end developer. "WTF just happened? Are you okay? Call me when you can." I texted back, "I'm fine. Let's talk later." Not on company channels. The security guard, Tony, who had greeted me every morning for 6 years, looked genuinely upset. "This is wrong, Ms. Carter. Everyone knows you're the brains behind this place." Thanks, Tony, I said, taking the sad cardboard box of desk plants, photos, and my women in tech coffee mug. Take care of yourself. Side on the sidewalk, the San Francisco fog was rolling in, matching my mood perfectly. I took a deep breath of the cool air and called the one person who would understand exactly what had just happened. Rohan? It's Zoe. They did it. They actually fired me. Where are you? He asked immediately. I'm picking you up. Don't move. 15 minutes later, Rohan's Tesla pulled up at the curb. My best friend since grad school and FoodFindr's original angel investor, Rohan had sold his shares last year when he sensed the company's shifting priorities. Chase had spun it as bringing in strategic investors, but Rohan had seen the writing on the wall. Get in, we're going to drown your sorrows in overpriced coffee, he said, helping me stash my sad little box in the trunk. At a quiet corner table in our favorite independent coffee shop, 5-star sustainability rating on the app I'd just been fired from, I finally let myself feel the rage I'd been suppressing. 6 years, Rohan. 6 years building that platform, and they're going to turn it into another discount coupon app for chain restaurants. Rohan nodded, stirring his oat milk latte. Chase never understood what made FoodFindr special. He just saw dollar signs when the user numbers started growing. They want me to sign an 18-month non-compete, I said, shaking my head. They fire me and then try to make sure I can't work. Tell me you didn't sign it. Of course not. But what am I supposed to do now? Start over at 37 competing against 22-year-old Stanford grads for coding jobs? Rohan set down his cup and leaned forward. Or you could build something better. I laughed bitterly. With what? My severance won't last long in this city, and I don't exactly have your kind of capital. No, but I know people who do. His eyes had that gleam that had made him a successful serial entrepreneur. Zoe, you built the most sophisticated sustainability algorithm in the food tech space. And if I remember correctly, you did most of the refinements on your own time, on your own equipment. I stared at him. How did you know that? Because you called me at least 20 times on weekends raving about your new metrics when you should have been having a social life. He pulled out his phone. Tell me something, did FoodFindr ever patent your algorithm? They kept saying legal was working on it. Every time I asked, it was in process or under review. Rohan's grin widened. Perfect. What are you thinking? I'm thinking it's time we had dinner with Lena Patel. The Lena Patel? Of Conscious Capital Ventures. The very same. She's been looking for purpose-driven food tech to invest in. And I happen to know she passed on FoodFindr because she thought they weren't authentic enough about sustainability. For the first time since security had escorted me from the building, I felt a flutter of hope. Rohan, I can't just start a competing company. There would be legal issues. Only if you use proprietary FoodFindr code or processes developed on company time and resources, he countered. But the core algorithm you've been refining on weekends? The one with all the innovative sustainability metrics they never bothered to patent? That's a different story. I sipped my coffee, mind racing. I'd need a team. Rohan's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and his eyebrows shot up. Speaking of teams, you might want to check your messages. I pulled out my phone to find texts from all 5 members of my development team. Maya, they're completely gutting your platform. Keith's already talking about replacing the sustainability metrics with sponsored restaurant placement. Please tell me you have a plan. Trent, this is BS. They've got us pivoting to basic Yelp functionality. You built something revolutionary and they're trashing it. I didn't sign up for this. Luis, are you starting something new? Because I'm updating my resume as we speak. Well, Rohan said with a smirk, looks like you might have a team after all. 2 weeks later, I sat in the office of Patricia Monroe, the intellectual property attorney Rohan had recommended. She closed the folder containing my documentation and looked up with a satisfied expression. Ms. Carter, you've done an exemplary job documenting your independent development work. The timestamps, commit logs, and personal equipment records clearly establish that your enhanced sustainability algorithm was developed outside your employment obligations. So I can use it? Not only can you use it, but we should file for patent protection immediately. Your former employer has no claim to these specific enhancements. What about the base algorithm? I asked. I developed that at FoodFindr. That belongs to them, she confirmed. But your weekend enhancements, particularly the carbon footprint calculation methodology and the supply chain transparency framework, those are significantly different and innovative enough to stand as separate intellectual property. I exhaled slowly. And the non-compete I never signed? Without your signature, it's unenforceable. Your original employment agreement had a standard 12-month non-compete, but it only covers direct replication of FoodFindr's specific business model. She smiled. A sustainability-focused platform with different functionality would likely fall outside those parameters, especially with your independently developed algorithm. So I can start a new company. You can. I'd recommend incorporating immediately and filing for expedited patent protection. Based on your documentation, we have a strong case for fast-tracking approval. For the first time in 2 weeks, I allowed myself to fully imagine the possibilities. Not just rebuilding what I'd lost, but creating something better. Something truly mine. One more question, I said. How quickly can we move on this? Patricia smiled. I've already drafted the patent application. That evening, I met Rohan and Leena Patel at an upscale vegetarian restaurant in Oakland. Leena was younger than I expected, maybe early 40s, with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor that had helped her build one of the most successful impact investment firms in the Bay Area. Rohan tells me FoodFindr made a spectacular mistake, she said after we'd ordered. I laughed. That's one way to put it. Tell me about your algorithm, she said. The real version, not the watered-down corporate one. For the next 30 minutes, I explained my vision for truly sustainable food tech, not just restaurant ratings but complete transparency about sourcing, carbon footprint, labor practices, and community impact. Most food apps just tell you what tastes good or what's popular, I explained. Mine can tell you if the restaurant's seafood is really sustainable, if their local claims are genuine, even how they treat their staff. Connects values-driven consumers with businesses that actually share those values, not just the ones with the biggest marketing budgets. Leena listened intently, occasionally asking pointed questions about scalability, verification methods, and market size. When I finished, she sat back and studied me. You know what FoodFindr's going to do, right? They'll strip out the complex sustainability metrics, focus on mainstream users, and probably get acquired by one of the delivery giants within 18 months. Probably, I agreed. And that makes you angry. I considered this. It makes me disappointed. They're abandoning the mission to chase a quick exit. What if you could stop them? I blinked. What do you mean? Rohan tells me you've got solid IP protection for your enhanced algorithm and no binding non-compete. What if I said I'm prepared to fund a competing platform? Not just seed money, but enough to build a serious challenger to FoodFindr, one that stays true to the original mission. My heart started racing. I'd say that sounds amazing, but why would you take that risk? Leena smiled for the first time. 2 reasons. First, I believe there's a genuine market for what you've built. Conscious consumerism isn't just growing, it's becoming mainstream. Second, she paused. Let's just say I've had my own experience with tech bros taking credit for women's innovations. What would this look like? I asked. Rohan, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, slid a folder across the table. We've sketched out a preliminary structure. Conscious Capital provides $5 million in series of funding. You're the founder and CEO with controlling interest. We fast-track development with your core team, assuming they want to jump ship and launch within 4 months before FoodFindr can complete their pivot. I opened the folder and stared at the numbers. It was more than enough to build something extraordinary. "What are you thinking of calling it?" Lena asked. I smiled. TruePlate. 3 days later, I sat in a borrowed conference room in Rohan's office building, facing my former team. All 5 of them had accepted my invitation to hear a business proposition after work hours. Maya spoke first. "Please tell me you're starting a new company because FoodFindr is going to hell in a handbasket." I couldn't help laughing. "That's exactly why we're here." Trent leaned forward. "We're listening." I outlined the plan, a new platform built around my enhanced sustainability algorithm, with Lena's substantial backing and a mission-driven approach that wouldn't be compromised by short-term profit demands. "I can't promise it will be easy," I concluded. "We'll be building fast and competing directly with our former employer. But we'll be building something we actually believe in." Luis, our back-end specialist, raised his hand. "What about legal issues? Non-competes and stuff?" "I've vetted everything through top IP counsel," I assured them. "The enhanced algorithm is legally mine. As for non-competes, that's a personal decision each of you will need to make based on your own employment agreements." "They've got us all signing updated agreements tomorrow," Maya revealed. Keith sent out a company-wide email. 18 months, super restrictive. I tried not to smile. Interesting timing. "They're scared," said Imani, our UX designer who rarely spoke up in meetings. "Keith's been in closed-door meetings all week, and there are rumors that some investors are questioning the pivot." "Are they onto us?" Rohan asked. Maya shook her head. "I don't think so. Not yet. But they know something's up." "So," I said, looking around at the people I'd worked alongside for years, "who's in?" The hands went up one by one: Maya, Trent, Luis, Imani, and finally Jen, our QA lead. "When do we start?" Jen asked. "Officially?" 2 weeks from now, after you've properly resigned and completed your notice periods." "Unofficially." I grinned. "I've already set up our project management system." The next month was a whirlwind. We secured office space in Oakland, partly because it was cheaper than San Francisco, but mostly because it aligned better with our mission to support communities overlooked by mainstream tech. I officially received notice that our patent application was being fast-tracked, and we brought on 3 additional developers to accelerate our timeline. Meanwhile, through the Silicon Valley grapevine, which moves at approximately twice the speed of social media, we heard that FoodFindr was struggling with their pivot. Several key engineers beyond our team had resigned, and there were rumors that one of their major investors was having second thoughts. "They've delayed their platform relaunch," Maya reported after lunch with her former roommate who still worked there. "Apparently the first version without your algorithm was a disaster in user testing. People kept asking where the sustainability features went." I tried not to feel too satisfied about that. Rohan and Lena had connected us with their networks, opening doors to restaurants and food producers committed to sustainability. Unlike FoodFindr's recent approach of charging restaurants for preferred placement, we were building a platform where visibility was earned through verified practices, not paid promotion. We were 3 months into development when my phone rang with a number I instantly recognized: Chase Woodley. "Zoe," he said when I answered, his voice an awkward mix of friendly and formal. "How have you been?" "Busy," I replied neutrally. "What can I do for you, Chase?" "I heard you've started a new venture." "Congratulations." "News travels fast." "Silicon Valley," he said with a forced laugh. "Look, I was hoping we could meet for coffee. Just to catch up." "Is this a social call or a business one?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. He hesitated. "Let's just say FoodFindr is reassessing some of our recent decisions, and I'd value your perspective." "My perspective is that I'm fully committed to my new company, but I'm happy to meet as colleagues." I named a coffee shop near our office, deliberately not the one in San Francisco we used to frequent. "Great," he said, sounding relieved. "House tomorrow at 10? The next morning, Chase arrived at the small Oakland coffee shop looking distinctly out of place in his premium casual Silicon Valley uniform of Allbirds, designer jeans, and a quarter-zip Patagonia pullover. He'd even crossed the bay via Uber rather than taking BART like a normal person. "This place is charming," he said, glancing around at the mismatched furniture and local art on the walls. "Very Oakland." "They're also worker-owned and source everything within 100 miles, I replied. "They'll be featured on TruePlate." Chase's expression tightened slightly at the mention of my new platform. "That's actually what I wanted to discuss," he said after ordering an oat milk latte that cost half what he'd pay in San Francisco. "Your new venture sounds interesting, but I'm concerned there might be some overlap with FoodFindr's proprietary technology." I'd expected this. My attorneys have thoroughly reviewed all IP issues. TruePlate is built on technology one developed independently. But the core concept is significantly different, I finished for him. TruePlate isn't just about finding restaurants, it's about verified sustainability across the entire food ecosystem. We're creating something FoodFindr explicitly decided not to pursue when you pivoted away from my original vision. Chase took a sip of his coffee, clearly recalibrating. "About that pivot," he said carefully. "We've been reconsidering some elements of our strategy. Our users have expressed disappointment with the reduced emphasis on sustainability features." I bet they had. "That's unfortunate," I said. "We'd like to explore ways we might work together," he continued. "Perhaps a partnership, or even bringing you back as a consultant to help restore some of the functionality our users are missing." I nearly choked on my coffee. "You fired me, Chase. You had security escort me out of the building. And now you want me to help you fix the platform you broke?" "I understand you're upset." "I'm not upset," I corrected him. "I'm building something better. Something true to the original mission. With our former staff," he added, a hint of accusation in his voice. "With talented people who share the vision. Just like I did when I built FoodFindr's team in the first place." Chase leaned forward. "Look, Zoe, let's be practical. We have the established user base, the brand recognition, and significantly more resources. Competition between us doesn't make sense when we could combine strengths." Translation: they were scared. "What exactly are you proposing?" "We acquire TruePlate, integrate your enhanced algorithm back into FoodFindr, and you return as Chief Sustainability Officer with a substantial equity adjustment." I couldn't help laughing. "Absolutely not." "Zoe." "Chase, you fire me because my vision wasn't commercially viable enough. Now that you're losing users and your investors are asking questions, suddenly sustainability matters again?" "No, thank you." His friendly facade slipped slightly. "You should consider this carefully. The market doesn't need two similar platforms." "You're right," I agreed. "That's why we're building one that actually delivers on its promises." Chase's expression hardened. "We still own the original algorithm. If this comes to direct competition, we have advantages you can't match." "Like what?" "A reputation for abandoning your mission the moment investors pressure you? Or do you mean the gutted platform that your remaining users are complaining about?" I stood up, gathering my things. "Our beta launches next month, Chase. I guess we'll see whose vision resonates more." Conversation with Chase confirmed what we'd suspected. FoodFindr was floundering. Our intelligence network, mostly consisting of disgruntled former colleagues who'd stayed in touch, reported that user retention had dropped significantly since they'd removed most of the sustainability features, and restaurants that had previously been highlighted for their environmental practices were threatening to pull their partnerships. Meanwhile, TruePlate was gaining momentum before we'd even launched. Our approach of directly engaging with the sustainable food community, farmers, restaurant owners, food justice advocates, had created significant buzz. We'd secured partnerships with the Good Food Institute, the Regenerative Organic Alliance, and several high-profile chefs known for their commitment to sustainability. 2 weeks before our scheduled beta launch, I received an unexpected text from Maya. "You need to see this. Check your email." The email contained a screenshot of an internal FoodFindr announcement. They were reaffirming their commitment to sustainability with a platform update that would restore many of the features they'd removed, just in time to compete with our launch. "They're trying to beat us to the punch," Rohan observed when I showed him. "Classic incumbent defense strategy. Can they pull it off?" Lena asked during our emergency strategy call. "Do they still have the technical capability without your team?" "They have the original algorithm," I acknowledged, "but not the enhanced version and not the team who built it. They can restore basic functionality, but not the advances we've made." "So what's our move?" Lena asked. "Delay our launch until we see what they roll out?" I thought about Chase's smug confidence, about being escorted from the building after 6 years of dedication, about the mission being abandoned and then hastily readopted when it became convenient. "No," I said firmly. "We move our launch up. Next week instead of 2 weeks. We launch the full platform, not just the beta." "Is that even possible?" Rohan asked. I glanced at Maya, who was on the call. She nodded slowly. "We'd have to pull some all-nighters, but the core functionality is solid. We can do it." "Then let's beat them at their own game," I decided. The next week was the most intense of my professional life. Our team worked around the clock, ordering in meals from the sustainable restaurants that would soon be featured on our platform. The office became a temporary home, with air mattresses in vacant conference rooms and more coffee consumed than was probably medically advisable. But true to Maya's word, we got it done. TruePlate was ready to launch, not just a minimum viable product, but a fully featured platform with our enhanced sustainability algorithm at its heart. The night before launch, as the team finally headed home for a few hours of sleep, Rohan found me alone in the office, staring at the launch button on our deployment dashboard. "Getting cold feet?" he asked, dropping into the chair beside me. "Just reflecting," I said. 6 months ago, I was being escorted out of FoodFindr with a cardboard box of desk plants. "And now you're about to eat their lunch," he finished with a grin. "Sustainably sourced, of course." I laughed. "I just hope we're right about the market. What if Chase was right and people don't actually care that much about the sustainability features? Then we've built something we believe in and we'll find the people who share those values," Rohan said simply. "But for what it's worth, I think we're right and Chase is wrong. People do care, they just haven't had the tools to act on those values easily." I nodded, drawing strength from his confidence. "We launch at 9 a.m. sharp. I'll bring the champagne," he promised. Organic, obviously. Launch day arrived with the kind of perfect weather that felt like a good omen, clear skies and sunshine across the Bay Area. Our PR team had coordinated announcements with our restaurant partners, sustainability organizations, and several tech and food publications interested in our mission-driven approach. At exactly 9 a.m., surrounded by my team, I clicked the button that made TruePlate live to the world. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Our servers, which we generously over-provisioned, still struggled under the initial traffic surge. Social media lit up with screenshots and excited posts as users discovered a platform that didn't just help them find food they liked, but food they could feel good about. By noon, we'd registered over 15,000 users. By the end of the day, that number had nearly tripled. "This is insane," Maya said, monitoring the real-time analytics. "The user acquisition cost is a fraction of what we projected because everything is organic growth." Even more significant was the engagement from restaurants and food producers. Our partner portal, where businesses could submit their practices for verification, was flooded with applications, not just from the Bay Area but from across the country. "We've got restaurants in Des Moines, Iowa signing up," Luis reported incredulously. "How did they even hear about us so quickly?" The answer came in a text from an unknown number. "Congratulations on the launch. You've built something remarkable. Let me know if you need any connections in the Midwest restaurant scene. Keith Denton." I stared at my phone in disbelief. Keith, FoodFindr's CPO who had helped engineer my firing, was congratulating me and apparently helping spread the word. "Thanks for the kind words," I replied cautiously. Surprised but appreciated. His response came quickly. "Not all of us agreed with Chase's direction. Some of us actually believed in what you built. I'm still at FoodFindr, but I'm rooting for you. This industry needs disruption." Before I could process this unexpected alliance, Trent called out from his monitoring station, "FoodFindr just announced their sustainability recommitment on Twitter. They've bumped it up to today to counter our launch." We gathered around his screen to read the announcement. FoodFindr was proudly restoring its industry-leading sustainability features, with immediate rollout to all users. "Let's see how that works out for them," I murmured. We didn't have to wait long to find out. Within hours, tech blogs were running comparisons between the two platforms. The verdict was nearly unanimous. FoodFindr's hastily reassembled sustainability features were shallow and performative compared to TruePlate's comprehensive approach. "FoodFindr plays catch-up to former employees' new venture," read one headline. "TruePlate versus FoodFindr, Why Authenticity Matters in Food Tech," proclaimed another. By the end of our launch day, #TruePlate Challenge was trending as users posted side-by-side comparisons of the same restaurants on both platforms, highlighting the depth of information available on TruePlate versus FoodFindr's surface-level metrics. That evening, as we celebrated with our promised organic champagne, my phone rang again with Chase's number. "Should I answer it?" I asked the room. "Speaker phone," several voices called out in unison. I answered on speaker. "Hello, Chase. That was quite a launch," he said, his voice tight despite the congratulatory words. "Impressive user numbers." "Thank you. You should know we're not backing down," he continued, abandoning any pretense of friendly competition. "We still have 10 times your user base and significant venture backing." I looked around at my team, the people who had believed in the mission enough to leave secure jobs and build something new from scratch, and felt a surge of confidence. "That's the difference between us, Chase. You're fighting to protect what you have. We're fighting for what we believe in. Only one of those is sustainable long-term." "This isn't over," he warned. "You're right," I agreed. "It's just beginning." 6 months after our launch, TruePlate had grown beyond our most optimistic projections. We'd expanded to 15 major metropolitan areas, with plans for nationwide coverage by the end of the year. Our user base had reached 2 million active users, still smaller than FoodFindr's but with higher engagement rates and significantly better retention. More importantly, we were having a real impact. Restaurants with verified sustainable practices were reporting 22% increases in business on average. Small-scale farmers and food producers who partnered with our featured restaurants were seeing increased demand for their products. We'd even launched a True Impact feature that quantified the environmental benefits of user choices, from carbon emissions avoided to water saved. FoodFindr, meanwhile, was struggling to maintain its position. Despite multiple attempts to enhance their sustainability features, they couldn't match our verification standards or algorithms without rebuilding from scratch. Their stock had dropped 35% since our launch, and rumors of internal conflict between Chase and the board were circulating throughout the industry. The final blow came 9 months after our launch. I was in my office reviewing partnership proposals when Lena burst in without knocking. "Have you seen it?" she demanded, waving her phone. "Seen what?" She placed her phone on my desk, open to a business news site. The headline made my heart skip. "Breaking, FoodFindr CEO Chase Woodley steps down amid investor pressure." The article detailed how FoodFindr's board had voted to replace Chase following 3 consecutive quarters of user decline and mounting losses. Company was reportedly in talks with potential buyers, having abandoned its plans for an IPO. "Holy shit," I whispered. "Keep reading," Lena urged. Near the end of the article was a quote from FoodFindr's largest investor. "We lost our way when we abandoned our core commitment to sustainability in favor of short-term growth tactics." The board is actively searching for leadership that can help the company rediscover its original mission. I leaned back in my chair, a complex mix of emotions washing over me. Vindication, certainly, but also a strange sense of loss for the company I had helped build from nothing. "Are you okay?" Lena asked. "I'm processing," I admitted. "I didn't start TruePlate to destroy FoodFindr. I just wanted to build something true to the original vision." "And you did," she assured me. "The rest is just market forces at work." My phone buzzed with a text from Keith. "It's official. Chase is out. Board wants to talk to you. Interested?" Before I could respond, another notification appeared. An email from FoodFindr's board chair requesting a meeting to discuss potential synergies between our companies. Lena read it over my shoulder and whistled. "Acquisition offer incoming. What are you thinking?" I thought about the journey of the past year. The humiliation of being escorted from the building. The exhilaration of building something new. Pride of seeing our impact grow day by day. "I'm thinking we should hear them out," I said finally. "But not because I want to sell." "Oh. FoodFindr still has millions of users who could benefit from genuine sustainability tools. If they're finally ready to commit to the mission for real, maybe there's a better solution than competition." The next day, I sat across from 3 members of FoodFindr's board in a neutral location, a conference room at Lena's venture firm. The contrast with my firing meeting couldn't have been more stark. This time, they were the ones looking nervous. "Ms. Carter, we appreciate you meeting with us," began Eleanor Richards, the board chair. "I'll be direct. FoodFindr made a serious strategic error in moving away from the sustainability focus you championed. We're interested in exploring acquisition options for TruePlate." I nodded. "I appreciate your directness. But I'm not looking to sell." Their faces fell in unison. "However," I continued, "I am interested in discussing a different kind of partnership." "We're listening," Eleanor said cautiously. TruePlate's mission has always been about maximizing positive environmental impact in the food ecosystem. Right now, we've got the superior platform but the smaller user base. You've got millions of users but a platform that's struggling to deliver genuine sustainability insights. I laid out my proposal, a data-sharing partnership that would allow FoodFindr users to access TruePlate's verified sustainability information while maintaining separate platforms with different business models. You keep your advertising and premium partnerships, we keep our verification-based model. But users of both platforms get the full picture, I explained. Over time, if it makes sense to integrate further, we can discuss that from a position of mutual success rather than one company rescuing the other. The board members exchanged glances. "This is unconventional," Eleanor admitted, "but intriguing. It preserves both brands while addressing our immediate user experience issues. It's also the approach that best serves our shared mission," I pointed out. "Assuming FoodFindr is genuinely recommitting to sustainability as a core value." "We are," Eleanor assured me. "The new CEO we're bringing in has a strong background in ethical business practices." "Then I think we have the foundation for an agreement," I said, extending my hand. "Partners." As we shook hands, I couldn't help reflecting on the journey that had brought me to this moment. A year ago, I'd been unceremoniously pushed out of the company I'd helped build, deemed expendable by leaders who couldn't see the value in what I'd created. Now I was returning, not as an employee or a subsidiary, but as an equal partner who had forced the industry to recognize that sustainability wasn't just a marketing buzzword but a viable business model. The irony wasn't lost on me. 3 months into our partnership, the data told an undeniable story. FoodFindr users were increasingly engaging with the TruePlate sustainability metrics. Restaurants across both platforms reported increases in business related to their verified practices. Our shared impact dashboard, which calculated environmental benefits in real-world terms like equivalent trees planted and plastic waste avoided, had become a viral sensation, with users competing to top their friends' impact scores. "We should celebrate," Rohan insisted one Friday evening as our teams reviewed the latest user data. "This time last year you were carrying a cardboard box out of FoodFindr while security watched. Now you're directing their sustainability strategy. And Chase is pursuing other opportunities," Maya added with air quotes, which apparently means posting LinkedIn articles about authentic leadership from his new meditation retreat in Bali. The combined office, we'd eventually merged our physical spaces to facilitate collaboration, erupted in laughter. Even Eleanor, who had joined FoodFindr's board just weeks before my firing and had been skeptical of Chase from the start, couldn't suppress a smile. "He sent me a connection request last week," I admitted, which triggered another round of laughter. "I'm still deciding whether to accept it or not." "Accept it," Keith suggested with a mischievous grin. "Then tag him in posts about our impact metrics every single day." As the party continued around me, I stepped out onto the balcony of our Oakland office. The San Francisco skyline glittered across the bay, a view of the tech world I'd once felt I needed to be part of to succeed. Now I saw it differently, beautiful from a distance but not the only place where innovation could thrive. My phone buzzed with a notification. TechCrunch had just published an article titled, "How TruePlate Forced Silicon Valley to Rethink Sustainability." I smiled, pocketing the phone without reading it. The validation was nice, but that wasn't why I'd built TruePlate. The door opened behind me and Lena joined me at the railing. "Penny for your thoughts?" she asked. "I was just thinking about something my grandmother used to say," I replied. "The best revenge is proving them wrong." Lena chuckled. "She sounds wise." She was. But I've realized something even better than revenge. "What's that?" "Building something meaningful," I said. "Turns out that's much more satisfying than watching someone else fail." Lena nodded thoughtfully. "So what's next?" "You've conquered food tech. Thinking about clean energy? Sustainable fashion? I've got investors lined up whatever you decide." I laughed. One disruption at a time. Though I did have this idea about connecting small-scale sustainable fabric producers with independent designers. "Oh God," Rohan groaned, appearing at the doorway with 3 glasses of champagne. "She's already plotting her next revolution." "Someone has to," I replied, accepting a glass. "The tech bros certainly aren't going to do it." We clinked glasses as the sun set over the Bay Area. Inside, our combined teams, former rivals now united behind a shared mission, continued celebrating. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from Tony, the security guard who had escorted me out of FoodFindr that fateful day. "Saw the TechCrunch article. Always knew you'd show them, Miss Carter. P.S. Chase cleaned out his office yesterday. Didn't offer to help him with his box, though. Funny how things work out." I smiled and typed back, "Thanks, Tony." Sometimes getting escorted out is just the first step of the journey. The next morning, over coffee at the worker-owned cafe that had witnessed my confrontation with Chase months earlier, I finally made my decision about his LinkedIn request. With a smirk, I hit accept and immediately sent him a message. "Chase, thanks for the connection. Thought you might be interested in our latest impact report. TruePlate and FoodFindr users collectively reduced carbon emissions equivalent to taking 15,000 cars off the road last quarter. Turns out too niche was just ahead of its time. Wishing you well in your future endeavors. Zoe." Sometimes success really is the best revenge. But having a little fun with it doesn't hurt either.